Right, welcome everyone to our cooking class this morning. So glad that you are here. We are going to be learning how to cook savory collard greens with mushrooms and polenta with Kelly. Before we do that, I just want to take a few minutes to start out. We always have a land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that we are on Dakota land here in Minneapolis, all over the state of Minnesota. We are on Dakota land and Ojibwe land. We also want to do a labor acknowledgement. I'm sure all of you know that Juneteenth is coming up, June 19th, 1865 is the day that all of our Black relatives in Texas found out that they had been emancipated through the Emancipation Proclamation. More importantly, that's when it was carried out by the soldiers and the government. So this today is actually in North Minneapolis when we're going to be having a big celebration. And I wanted to acknowledge and recognize Michelle Gibson Webb, who has been organizing this celebration for years. We lost her way too soon. She was a huge proponent of Black-owned businesses, had Bob rewards, and we're just really going to miss her. So if you have a chance to go to the Juneteenth celebration, whether it be today or on June 19th, there are a lot of celebrations going on for Juneteenth. So with that, I want to do some introductions and shout outs. We were supposed to be at the Story Garden, and I was hoping that we would still have someone here from the garden, but hopefully we'll be able to do a cooking class there again. The garden is in the Falwell Neighborhood Association, and I've never been there, so unfortunately I cannot talk about it, but we'd really like to be able to learn about it and to be able to highlight it because that's one of the great gardens that they have in Falwell in North Minneapolis. And then Minneapolis Edible Boulevards, we co-host all of these and hold them monthly. We want to make sure that we offer free cooking classes in the community, especially throughout the garden season, so people learn how to grow food. Both learn how to grow food, that's one of our main missions, but also then learn how to cook with that food that's coming from the garden. And so this is our big cook-off for our 5th anniversary of doing these cooking classes. And Kelly has been with us from day one of those. So I'm really excited to introduce Kelly. Kelly has Harmonious World and Wellness, and also has the Angela Day School. I know we will learn more about both of those things. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Kelly.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's always just such an honor to continue to collaborate and work together because I really believe and align with the mission, the vision, and the work that Minneapolis Edible Boulevards has been doing over the years. So it's been just great and a lot of fun to be in partnership over the last 3 years, has it been now? And 5, that's crazy. Where did time go? Right, because it was during COVID, and that has been 5 years already. So yes, so as Michelle mentioned, I've been here since the very beginning and just love the partnership. It's been a lot of fun when we can get outside in the garden, which is always ideal because the initiative really, fosters and supports, encourages growing your own food and then cooking the ingredients from the food in a very simple, accessible way. And so I've been in the garden some of the times. I've been from my home some of the times. As you see, we've even done some cooking classes in partnership with some of the cooperatives as well. So that's been nice. It's been kind of a nice mix of setting and environment. So as Michelle mentioned, I am Kelly Shay, and I am the founder and creative director of Harmonious World and Wellness. And so I have a couple different branches of my work with Harmonious World, which I launched in 2020, so also 5 years ago. It was really centered on fusing together the wellness and entertainment industry to create these very unique and empowering experiences. And so I started my events online, collaborating with a lot of different artists and healers, entertainers in the Twin Cities area. And then eventually we started moving to do some in person. I also DJ, so music has been part of my life, and I've been doing that on and off for the last 20 years. The wellness work, and that's also where I kind of brought in this plant-based cooking, part of the work that I do. I've been teaching yoga and meditation for, I want to say like 15 years. I do body work as well. And then I also am a regenerative health practitioner. So I support and guide people to get to the root cause of imbalance in the body. It's a very cellular approach to healing. There's a heavy focus on detoxification and bringing more nourishment and vitality and harmony into the body through the foods we eat, the herbs we eat, and lifestyle and mindset practices. And so I run my business out of North Minneapolis at the Zabra Integrative Root Center. That's where I do body work and regenerative health. I love that work very, very much. And then I also do these plant-based cooking classes, as you guys know. Michelle mentioned the Angela Day School for Progressive Education and Liberation. That's also a project I've been a part of for the last 4 years as the chair on the board. We have kind of, starting a charter school is a lot of work, and I won't take too much more time here so we can get to cooking. But we've had to kind of pause on some things. There's still some things, under the surface behind closed doors that we're working to really get that going. But an education system, a pedagogy that's very rooted in nature-based, child-centered education. So again, this is a type of education where there'd be a lot of times outdoors. Gardening and growing your own would be a big, huge part of the curriculum. And that sort of thing. So we're hoping to kick that off next fall with the early childhood program. So stay tuned. So I think that's enough about me. I live in Brooklyn Park. That's where I am right now. I'm a mom of 3 girls. And so that's me. And so we are cooking, as Michelle mentioned, savory collard greens and mushrooms over polenta. And I know that not everyone here is going to be cooking along with us, but that is okay. Hopefully, you are inspired and somewhat entertained by watching us cook in our kitchens. I have everything here. I am actually I'm using my laptop, so I'm gonna start moving around. So you're gonna go on a little ride. And what I'm gonna do now, because I haven't done it yet, the first thing that we're gonna start doing is heating the skillet to do our polenta. So I'm gonna get that heated. And the one thing I want to say about the polenta is there is, and this was on the recipe notes as well. So polenta is also known as grits. I think those are used pretty interchangeably. It's made from corn. A lot of corn is genetically modified, unfortunately. So it's not something that I consume on a regular basis. It is a little bit harder on our digestive system. So I don't recommend eating corn on a regular basis, but once in a while, yes, it tastes delicious. When you do get it organic, locally grown from a farmer. For convenience sake, I am using this kind of pre-rolled organic polenta. And I got this at Eastside Co-op. Most co-ops carry this. Ancient Harvest is the company. It's gluten-free, has the non-GMO verification on there, USDA organic. Those are really important labels for me when it comes to cooking, if it's not just, grabbing produce right from my backyard. So that's what I'm using today is this pre-rolled polenta, and I'll be slicing this. Now these packages, they do have water in it to kind of preserve it. So I always open it in front of the sink and drain it, and then I'll slice. So that's going to be the first step is we're going to slice our polenta or prepare our polenta. Now, Michelle, you're the only one cooking along with me this morning. Did you get pre-rolled or did you actually get the bulk?
No, I got pre-roll and I have not used it for a long time. So I was going to ask you what your to like show us the easiest way to open it, because when
Yeah.
I opened it this morning, I was like, oops,
Oops,
water
exactly.
everywhere.
Yes. If I could count the times that has happened to me. So I will show you and we'll just come over to my sink here. because you'll just be moving along with me. And so I have everything prepared. Well, not sliced yet because I'm at home. We're gonna chop things along, but I have the red peppers is on the recipe. Those are rinsed, all organic. I do grow collard greens in my garden every single year and peppers, but we're not at that stage yet. So I, got these from the co-op, the collard greens. Now, not everyone is a collard green fan, so kale works. You could use spinach, any green. Arugula would be really yummy too, or like kale and arugula would be a nice yummy mix. And then we have, an onion and garlic. And those are, and then I have my mushrooms already rinsed in a strainer and I'll be chopping those. And as the recipe noted, you can use any mushroom. Part of the initiative is making it very accessible, being within like a budget. So that finances, aren't a barrier to creating really, clean, simple, fresh meals. And so I have crimini mushrooms, white button mushrooms are also, on the lower, scale as far as like price goes. Portobellas, I made this recipe a couple weeks ago. I used portobellas and shiitakes, and that was really, really good. So, use whatever mushrooms you can forage, morels, whatever's close. Mushroom foraging is a really fun thing to do. So if you can have access to fresh mushrooms, by all means do that. And for toppings today, after everything's done, I do have avocado. We'll slice avocado. I do have pine nuts. I did not roast them yet, but you could roast some pine nuts. That was also a recommendation. They can be a little pricey for some, but that might be a nice little kind of topping just for more kind of nutty, buttery, and kind of crunch in your dish. All right, polenta. So you want to cut it over the sink. So what I do, here's my sink, is I use a knife and the water is already starting to drain out. So I just kind of cut it a few places so I have easy access. And then the plastic would just kind of come off. Once I have a good opening and it's all the way drained out, then I squeeze it out, still over the sink, give it a shake, and then I just bring it to my cutting board. I have a small knife here. Let me slide you guys a little bit closer. And then I also use the ends for this. And I do about, an inch and a half slices. We'll be a little even more closer. So they're about like this size because we're frying them. And so, and I don't want to use like a ton of oil, so I'm not going to do really big, thick slices. You could if you want. I don't fry a lot. Obviously that's not, some very healthy practice to eat a lot of fried foods. And then oil is important too. So I'm really intentional about the oil that I use when I do cook with oil. Avocado oil is my preference. It is on the higher price end of things. If you don't get that, you can get olive oil would be another, or grapeseed oil. I highly recommend avoiding the overly processed oils like vegetable or canola oil. Bare minimum, I would say olive oil, but avocado is definitely my favorite. Coconut oil. That would actually be kind of even better, but it's a little bit harder to get the frying kind of crispy texture, just depending on your stove, the skillet, and the time that you have. So I'm using avocado oil today, and I do have vegan butter because I really love the buttery flavor in this recipe. So, and Mikos has been my favorite vegan plant-based butter to use. Um, I'm gonna use avocado oil to fry the polenta. I did this a couple weeks ago and use butter for the frying and then kind of a mix of oil and butter. But I'm gonna just use oil to fry the polenta. And then I'm gonna add butter as we're cooking the mushrooms, onions, greens, and peppers. Now you can also just get bulk polenta or corn grits and then follow the instructions on the bag or even in the recipe instructions. There was instructions on how to do that. generally, I believe it was 4 cups water to 1 cup polenta. So a little bit more than you would do for like rice or quinoa. A little bit more water. The ratio is a little bit different. So I'm slicing all my polenta. My skillet is probably good to go at this point. It does take a little while, and I put my skillet, the temperature at about medium to low. I have mine on a high heat setting right now, or I on the stove. There's kind of like a quick heat stove top, so I tend to start a little bit lower for this one. I can tell that it's already high, a little bit too high, so I'm going to turn it down. And I'm going to make some adjustments so you guys can see me over here before I start my chopping. All right, so here we have the skillet. Oil is definitely hot. I'm going to turn it down a little bit more, like I said. And I'm going to bring the polenta over and go slowly. This is a little hot right now. I don't think it'll attack me. No, we're good. So I just placed the polenta around the skillet. And you don't want it to, polenta can stick depending on to the skillet. So, you know, starting lower is always a little bit better. And then we're just gonna kind of watch it. Yeah, I had to turn it down. You can probably hear that, making that fry sound. Okay. So I will have to do this in a couple batches, because not all of the polenta that I sliced fit into the skillet. So just so you can see here, we got the polenta going. Now, in the meantime, how are we there? Michelle, did you got the polenta going?
I forgot to turn on the skillet, so it's warming up, but I
Okay,
do have everything chopped up already, so I'm
perfect.
I'm good to go there.
Okay, wonderful. So we can start actually heating the other skillet, because we're gonna add the mushrooms and saute them first. And so for the mushrooms, we had about 4 cups of mushrooms, just over a pound. I do have a measuring cup here. If you want to be precise, use your measuring cup. If you have a pound of mushrooms, just slice them up. I always like to mention that I am also very much an intuitive cook. I have all the measurements on the recipe. That's how I created the recipe and tested it out for the flavor, so it's good to go. But I do experiment quite a bit with adding a little bit more, adding a little bit less of like the seasoning and the vegetables. So let me go ahead and start this other pan that I have over here where I'm going to do the mushroom.
So, how much oil are you putting in each of the pans?
So I probably put for the polenta, I want to say that I put probably about 4 tablespoons, maybe
Okay.
a little bit more.
Mm.
And might have been like, yeah, 4 or 5. Um, I could have measured that. Let's see. I would say maybe a 4th cup. A 4th cup would probably be a good amount to start with.
And is
Uh,
that the same in the mushrooms one?
I would add less. I think for the mushrooms, I have my tablespoon here, and I'm gonna just test that out. I think quite a bit, and I think the recipe I put 4 tablespoons. So 1, 2, 3. That looks good. Start with 3 tablespoons for the vegetable skillet. Now, the one thing I didn't mention too, as the polenta is frying here, we can start to season this first side now that it's a little bit warm. There's even some oil that you might start to see on top. In the recipe, I think that I experimented and also put, you can sprinkle nutritional yeast on there, but we're actually going to skip that part. I kind of like, just, we can do that last, just to get that cheesy flavor in the grits. So what I would do here now is just do some dash of sea salt over the polenta. So, and also just to note on the salt, another thing that I'm pretty particular about, I don't recommend just like, your white table salt. I recommend using sea salt. Or I like, an organic salt, sea salt. Baja Gold is another sea salt that I really love. It's a mineral sea salt. This is a higher end sea salt. It's potent, but it's also just really rich in minerals and nutrients. With a really great flavor, very clean. So Baja Gold mineral sea salt, I like to use quite a bit as well. Even when I'm working with patients that are really trying to like boost their thyroid and we need some like iodine in a naturally sourced way. You can even take like a teaspoon of this mineral salt under the tongue just to kind of help someone that might have like hypothyroidism. This would be a good thing to do. All right, so let's get these mushrooms sliced up. I got some big ones from the co-op yesterday. Now, as far as slicing the mushrooms, I like bigger chunks of mushrooms. So I'm just gonna literally cut that in half and then dice. And so once you start to cook the mushrooms, I know Michelle, yours are already cooked or already sliced, excuse me. So if they're already sliced, you're gonna just start to saute the mushrooms, and then saute for like 8 to 10 minutes until they're like golden brown and just start to release some of those juices. And then after that, that is when you then add the garlic, which we'll do next. So I'm gonna do a speed chop of all the mushrooms. Does anyone have experience with foraging mushrooms? Using like cooking with fresh mushrooms from the wild or growing them in their backyard?
No, I wish I did. I have a friend who forages and I went with him once, but we didn't find much.
Oh, yeah, I've always wanted to go on a big mushroom forage hunt. I've had friends that, have those inoculated logs in their backyard or on their homestead, and I've had fresh mushrooms from them. I have come across chicken of the woods in the
Mm.
wild before, and so I did forage that. That was delicious. I have a friend that goes morel hunting I don't know if hunting is even the right word. It's not. Morel foraging. Um, every year, and I always miss the window and the opportunity to go. So I could have used my bigger cutting board. This is getting a little bit full, so I'm just gonna go over here, back to the stove, and get these in here. And I'm also gonna check my polenta. And so when I'm checking my polenta, I'm doing so, I have a spatula. And I want to start to see some browning. Now, it usually can take a while. But you do want to check. So bring you guys over here. It's not even close to brown yet. But you also want to make sure that it's not sticky. So moving it a little bit, just do a little lift and then lower back down just to make sure you don't have any of the sticking to the skillet. That's a good practice. Has anyone cooked with polenta before? Just curious.
I've done like the grits version of polenta, but I've never done the slice, what you're doing.
Okay. Okay. So let me finish chopping these mushrooms. I always like to share a little bit about some of the benefits, nutritional benefits of the food that we're cooking.
Kelly, can I just share real quick about foraging?
Yes, please do.
So I went morels foraging about a month ago for the very first time. And
Oh.
and we did find morels because it was with somebody who knew what they were doing. And after that, I became addicted to searching for mushrooms, searching for morels, but I could not find any. It was kind of at the end of the season. But
Mhm.
since then, I have been out in my neighborhood looking for mushrooms. We have found, like, I didn't know anything really about mushrooms other than the kinds that I was trying to grow in my yard, which I
Mhm.
have not had any luck with because of the drought last year.
Mhm.
Um, but I was searching everywhere for mushrooms, came back to my yard, and wine caps were actually growing, which I
Oh,
had planted right with some spawn last year. So
oh, nice.
yeah, so that was a huge surprise. And then ended up finding some pheasant back mushrooms like right next to me in our park with my neighbors. So we're connecting because we're finding all these mushrooms together. And then a kind called mica cap. So I'm learning about all these different kinds of mushrooms right in my own backyard, like half a block away that we can eat. So you just have to be really careful to know what kind you can eat and what kind
Yeah.
are poisonous. So,
Absolutely. That's important. And I know that there's like different apps and stuff that for like identifying, or I use it for like my herbalism when I'm doing like plant walks or just going to forage, but they're not always accurate with mushrooms. So you do, even those like professional apps, you really have to know what you're doing. Yeah.
and Facebook groups. I'm a part of some Facebook groups, and people on there are really helpful.
Okay.
So, anyway, I'll send it back to you, but I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because I did want to hear everyone's experience on mushroom foraging. And when you said lion's mane caps you had.
Oh, mica
Mike,
caps.
Micah cap. Okay,
Yeah, they're ink caps. So,
got it.
yeah, do you want to share about the nutrition?
Yeah, so mushrooms, there can be some controversy or just, mixed thoughts on mushrooms because it's a fungus and not everyone wants to have, the fungus, and a lot of people don't like mushrooms, but they're just an excellent plant-based protein source. So that's, one thing I like to say, kind of the main thing. Yes, there's other vitamins and minerals in them, but their protein is it's a great source of protein. Um, and like B vitamins. I, different mushrooms, different varieties will have different amounts of protein. I think portobellos are pretty higher in protein than um than like your crimini or your white button mushrooms. If you're at a restaurant and there's like a mushroom burger, you usually see like a portobello. It's more of like that meaty texture. So for somebody that's maybe, trying plant-based, trying to get rid of meat, or phasing off of meat, experimenting with not eating anymore, portobello has a more meaty texture and can be a nice replacement for people that like that texture. One thing I like to say about mushrooms too is because I work with people on like detoxification protocols. If somebody has like a lot of like candida in their body, which candida is it's a fungus that we all have. It's kind of a fungus eating bacteria. It eats up bacteria that we need to help kind of break down like carbohydrates and starches. So we all have a little bit of candida, this candida bacteria in our body. But when we have an overgrowth of candida, that's when we start to have symptomology like, yeast infections, dry, itchy skin, bloating, brain fog. Those are kind of some common overgrowth of candida type symptoms. If I'm detoxifying somebody from candida overgrowth, they're meeting all of these symptoms, and there's more, then I will encourage to not have mushrooms during that time because it's not going to be conducive to reducing kind of that fungal overgrowth load in the body. So that's the only thing. If you know you have some of those symptoms, if you know you have, yeast infection or something like that, don't go eat a bunch of mushrooms. It's just going to be counterproductive to the body. And everything in moderation, and keeping that balance is important. So I do love mushrooms, but I, don't eat them every single day as a plant-based eater. There are a lot of other ways that we can get our protein. Dark collard greens even has like protein in it. Dark leafy greens do. And I'll get to the benefits of that as we kind of get to that, start chopping that up. But I also like to say about protein is that we do get them from plants. When we eat animal flesh, that's secondhand protein. Animals eat vegetables, they're getting that firsthand protein. If we're eating the animal, that's secondhand protein. And it's amino acids that our body really needs. And amino acids are these chains that are the building blocks to protein. So our body needs amino acids. I also, supplement, with a amino acid formula. This just happens to be right here is why I'm showing it. So I know that as someone that's eating plant-based, I'm getting plenty of protein. Rarely does anyone have a protein deficiency. So it's kind of this myth out here that we need to have protein, protein, protein. We need amino acids. We get that directly from plants. So enough of that. So let me check my polenta. Any questions or comments or thoughts on that? Hey, Helena, my friend Helena's here. So I'm going to check my polenta. It's actually looking a little brown, and I'm going to show you guys this kind of lighter brown coloring. Can you see that? It could go a little bit more, but you don't want it to be like crunchy crisp. You could if you like that texture. But I still like this softness. And this is also why you could do this recipe with grits, and like in a saucepan and have just like your like cereal kind of mushy type grits for it. I'm going to flip all of these and then I'm going to show you guys kind of the coloring, this golden light brown coloring that I have. Oh no. Hey Helene, I'm so happy you made it. Did you say something? Okay. So once you flip the polenta, if it's golden brown, then I would season this side. So again, using a little bit of salt. Again, I'm not a stickler for proportions and measurements all the time. Some people are in their cooking. So I'm using a little bit of salt again. I'm actually going to push these a little bit together so I'm not like just seasoning the actual saucepan. So just a light touch of seasoning. So if everyone can see, this is kind of the golden brown color that they are. And not all of them are that color, but that's what you're going for when you're using the sliced polenta. So I'm going to let those golden brown on the other side. And then I will use, then I'll go ahead and put my remaining polenta in. There's not a lot there, but I have those, pre-sliced over here. And then the mushrooms, again, we're cooking them until some of these juices, it releases all of the juices. And I'm pretty much there. So the next thing we're gonna do is chop the garlic. You can get chopped garlic, of course, but I recommend garlic is not hard to grow. So this is all of these things, you can grow in the garden. This is why it's Minneapolis edible boulevards. So you can get chopped garlic, but I recommend having fresh garlic. 7 cloves is what I recommend for this particular recipe. I love garlic, so you can never have too much, in my opinion. So I have what the co-op had the other day. I have they're just these really cute ones. I don't know if there's 7 in here, and if there are 7, they're tiny. So I'm probably just gonna slice it, chop all of it, and just make it really garlicky, because the more garlic, the yummier to me. So let me see here. So yes, golden brown, the mushrooms, make sure they release their juices. Then we're going to add the garlic, and then we're going to saute the mushrooms and the garlic together for about another minute or so. And then we're going to add our peppers and our onions next. Okay. And so, and if we're not all the way finished, let me just say by 12 o'clock, it's okay. Continue cooking. I can stay on longer. I'm good for time. So we can finish out this recipe. Sometimes we happen to go over, and sometimes we don't. Okay, so I'm gonna get this garlic chopping. I was just checking the chat because there was something there. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I was just going to add real quick about the garlic. So you
Yeah.
do need to plant the garlic in the fall. So right now I've noticed that my garlic is starting to get to the scape part so that you can, put scapes and pesto and different things. Does anyone make anything with their scapes? If anyone here also grows garlic, Kelly, were you starting to grow garlic too?
I haven't yet. Which is ridiculous, but I know how it's done. But I didn't last year.
Okay. Does anyone
Yeah.
else here grow garlic?
I grow garlic. I started growing garlic a few years back. So yeah, last year was the first year I didn't know anything to what to do with the scapes. And last year I cut them all, and then I just would use them as a garnish, really like saute them a little bit and then garnish them on a lot of different dishes that I made. But I do want to try making pesto because I've heard people doing that.
Yum. That sounds delicious. Yeah, okay. So, there's so many techniques to chopping garlic. Like this little bunch gave me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so I'll just go with this, especially just for time's sake. I'm not going to do that other one. Now, there's like garlic, pressers, and you can get, fancy with how you do it. I usually just, again, you want to kind of release some of those juices. And then do a little press of the garlic to then get the skin off. That has been my method forever. And so it just easily comes off once you kind of press it. Now, garlic, as far as those benefits, very high in antioxidants, great for the immune system, great for the eyes, digestive health, stomach aches. Garlic can be really good for sore throats. Again, they're high in vitamin C. And really good for our immune system. So, have used fresh garlic on like a teaspoon with a little bit of honey, or just eating fresh garlic. You can even like boil garlic and onion together and do like a foot soak, where the garlic and the onion together really help to kind of draw out toxins from the body. That's like an old method that someone told me about not that long ago. Yes, so if you're not feeling well, you can up the garlic, add it to a recipe, or just eat it raw. Now, I know people that have just like popped a garlic clove right in their mouth. Now, it can be intense, but very effective. I think I mentioned sore throats. The honey and the garlic, just take it all at once. A spoonful of it will help soothe the sore throat. It's like kind of a nature's natural antibiotic. So even if somebody has like strep throats, I am not one to advocate for, quick to jump on antibiotics. I use nature or direct source as much as possible. So this has also been known to clear sore throats. All right, so I am hearing and feeling that other side of the polenta is done. So I'm gonna finish this really quick and then go over and take that off. Now, it's gonna be a little bit greasy. There's a couple of different methods to that. You can lay down some paper towels on a plate and then put your polenta on there. I have found that every time I do that, or most of the time, not every time, it sticks to the paper towel, then it's annoying to peel the paper towel off of your food. So I'll just put it on a plate and let it cool. And if I feel like it's still a little too oily for me, then I will just use a paper towel and dab it to get some of that oil off. So my garlic is chopped or peeled. I'm gonna chop it very quick I have turned down my mushrooms so they're not burning. They're still looking good. Those juices have released. They're nice and brown. They look delicious here. So there's the mushrooms. And then the polenta over here is definitely done. I'm just gonna get a plate and do the dabbing. So let me get those off, and then I'll get the other polenta in, the last remaining. The other thing the recipe mentions, if you're using these sliced polentas, is you can mush it in the pan if you want. If you don't want just slices, you can use a fork and kind of press and mush and kind of mix in the pan, and then you could also put nutritional yeast on the polenta before you mash, so then you have that flavor. What we're gonna do is sprinkle the polenta right on the, or sprinkle the nutritional yeast for that cheesy flavor right on the slices. So here's the plate of polenta. I'm gonna just set this over here.
Kelly, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if we're doing the bulk polenta and we add the nutritional yeast and salt and everything into the polenta itself, would so could that just be like a base, right? And then we put all the veggies on top.
Yeah.
And B, like how would that can that be made in the patties like this? Like I'm just trying to envision how yeah.
No, that's a great question. And it's actually a really good idea. So you could do that. You could form your own little patties. You could even do like little balls. You could get real creative with it because it is like a thicker, when you're making the polenta. It's actually been a little while since I've used just, dry, loose polenta. But you could form it. You could, put all the seasonings in as it's in the pot, your salt, your plant-based butter, your nutritional yeast. Those would be the primary things I would add to the saucepan, and as you're mixing the polenta / grits. And if it's like thick enough, and you can play with the consistency, the texture of it, whether you add more water, or if you want to add like a plant-based milk for that more creamy flavor, that would be really yummy. So depending on the consistency and the thickness of it, you then could form little circular logs, like, what was already formed here, or little balls, or I don't know, hearts or something. And then, then fry it in its own little shape. So then you get that browning just like that. So I think that's a good point. One thing I'm gonna do while this polenta that I just took off the plate, and I know I'm jumping around because I do that, and this is like, many hands sometimes you need in the kitchen. I'm actually gonna sprinkle this plate while it's warm with nutritional yeast before I put the other ones on here. So I did get bulk nutritional yeast. I'm gonna sprinkle it on there now. So we start to have that, start to kind of marinate and soak that flavor in. Okay. That's that. Coming back over here to the garlic. I'm gonna chop this up really quick and get these in with the mushrooms. Just get those last little ends off of the garlic. And this is why fresh garlic's always better, but this is also why people just buy like, your little jar of like fresh garlic or already pre-chopped garlic. I like garlic so much that it says minced garlic on the recipe, but honestly, I don't even mind a big chunk of garlic. So, chop, mince as much as you want, as fine as you'd like. It's a complete preference sort of thing. All right. That is pretty much good enough for me. Helena, are you watching? Are you cooking along with us?
No, I'm just watching. I had not had the chance to get all the ingredients, but when I saw what the recipe was, I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. I want to just see what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I
Okay, good.
so definitely will be doing it. But I wanted to offer up something too for anyone who might be looking for an alternative to like
Mm.
polenta or grits, because I think are they like corn base? Polenta is as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and I
So,
talked a little bit about that. So yes, but please do, because not
oh, okay,
everyone.
sorry. And I'm late, so I might be saying something you already said, Kelly, because you are definitely an educator in like alternative ways that it might even be better. But what I discovered a year ago that's now become my porridge or my grit substitute for people that are wanting to be alkaline is quinoa flakes. So not quinoa that you normally just boil down, but the flakes.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's so
Thank-
amazing. And it creams up like you would have like grits.
Oh, wow. That is new information. And I've never seen quinoa flakes before.
I never have till I came across and then I looked it up and then I bought it online on Amazon and then tried it out. And what's cool about it is you don't really have to boil it down for it to render a really soft texture. You can actually just put hot water over, kind of like how you would do like, what is it, couscous, that you would just need to
Yeah.
pour water and let it sit.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Okay, so I will definitely have to try that. Um, because I think it is important to have a corn alternative. And what I mentioned, Helena, and you know this, too, because corn is not alkaline, and I am a big component of
Mhm.
alkaline eating.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that, like if you get it, like don't eat it on a regular basis. It's not really meant for us to really, it's hard for us, our bodies to digest. If you do get
Right.
it, you want it occasionally, make sure it's organic, non-GMO, which most corn is GMO. So what I use, Helena, for convenience, were these from Eastside Co-op. It does have the non-GMO verification, USDA,
Mm,
Ancient Harvest, pretty good company. So I use those, but you could just get the
okay.
bulk or
That's a good
polenta.
one. And I still
Or,
love polenta. Don't get me
or
wrong, I
or
love it.
quinoa flakes or quinoa. I want to try those. So the co-op has them.
I don't know. I got it on Amazon. So I got an
Oh,
organic bag and I can share I'll share the brand that I'm using.
okay, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Do thank you for that. And so we have a cup of onions. So I'm gonna start to slice the onion and I'm gonna get those in. One thing I did just do is I did add a couple of tablespoons of the vegan butter to my dish because I want to start getting that buttery flavor into the mushrooms, into the veggies. So got my organic onion. I have grown onions in the backyard. Has anyone grown onions in the backyard before? Have experience doing that? Okay. Um, chives, green onions.
I grow chives. I have a little chive plant.
Okay, nice. So you can
I
just
grow.
slice.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you can slice these thin. I like slicing them long. I'm not gonna like chop it finely. So when I'm mentioning chopping or slice thinly, I just cut the onion in half and then I'm just slicing. So they're long, thin slices. That's how I liked it for this recipe. And so I just did half an onion that is about a cup. Like I could fit that. I do have a cup measuring cup here. I love onions again. You could add a little bit more. So I'm gonna stick those over here.
So I
And
was
I'll
just
show
going to say, I recommend growing chives and any kind of onions around the perimeter of gardens to keep the rabbits and squirrels away from your edibles.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because I've kind of done some new things with my garden this year. I have some raised beds that I got in because I have a really big plot that just haven't been able to keep up with all the weeding and stuff. So I got, some will be direct in the ground, and then some produce will be in these big raised beds, which the beds are fenced, but the plot is not the direct soil. And anyways, long story, where I'm going is I'm trying to think of how rabbit deterrents, and I've been like looking those up. So because I don't want to fence everything in, and I don't know how aggressive or hungry they're going to be.
Garlic, onions, marigolds, nasturtiums, those are all good.
Nasturtiums. Okay, yum. Okay.
Yes, they're all edibles and they're all good deterrents.
Okay, good to know. And I'm gonna show you guys that I'm gonna flip my polenta. Because this is brown on one side, and then we'll get these peppers and then the collard greens in here. And the greens don't have to cook that long. I am aware of time. We're gonna go over a little bit. So I flip my polenta. I am gonna season a little bit with the salt. And onions, as far as some of those benefits, it's also onions are good, known to be good for the immune system. High in antioxidants. Some studies say that it can reduce the risk of kind of cancer, so lowering an acidic environment. Now, anything you cook is going to be more on the acid side of chemistry. These kind of fall more in the middle. And again, I am a component of alkaline eating, especially if you're dealing with an imbalance or a diagnosis, or just trying to bring more vitality into the body. Heart health, quercetin they're full of, they help kind of lower blood pressure, reduce the risk of blood clots, and even lower cholesterol levels, which they contain chromium, which again is something that helps regulate blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetes, and that can also help reduce inflammation. An old method that I was taught a long time ago, and I mentioned this, is you can boil onion, put it in water, well, keep it in the water, let it cool, and put your feet in there, and it helps draw out toxins from your body. So that's some of the benefits of onions. And they just obviously add really delicious flavor to recipes all the time. So I have 2 red peppers is what I said for the recipe. As far as slicing these, you can chop them finely, or you can slice them long, just like I did for the onions. So I'm gonna get these going. And then we're finally gonna be at the collard greens. Peppers are also really high in antioxidants. They help lower cholesterol, blood sugar levels as well, especially when eaten raw again. Good for heart health. So cardiovascular health, they're great for. They have A, B, C vitamins in them. So peppers are awesome. Beautiful. And you can use any color pepper, because I like color in my food. I'll use red and yellow peppers the most. Green peppers, are delicious too. But again, if you're going for like a rainbow look in a recipe, then get you some red peppers or some yellow or orange. And they grow really well here in Minnesota. So for those of you that are gardeners, I hope that you grow peppers. Does anyone
Kelly,
have a?
what do you?
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. What do you recommend for someone like me in an apartment? Only thing that I really grow is like herbs, like, basil and oregano and stuff like that. What are some other things outside of that that you recommend for inside growing?
Yeah, the herbs, are always great. If you can get a grow light, you could, I've seen people grow produce or vegetables in their house with, you can get like a whole like little setup. But even if you had like a plant grow light and you had a tomato plant, you could give that a try. I don't have personal experience with growing produce inside, just with herbs.
Yeah.
Your basic kitchen herbs. So do they have do they have like, and okay, so do they have an area at your apartment building where you could do any gardening? They have a garden?
Not really. It's not set up that way. But there is, I live in Northeast Minneapolis, but there is an area when I go through some of the residential homes. There's one area on Second Street that I've seen some kind of community gardening.
Okay. So
But
okay. That's good to know. I think one thing that I would encourage and advocate for if I were in an apartment building, and if there was like, an outdoor space where they have like patio and grill or pool or whatever, I would like advocate for getting some raised beds up
hmm,
there. And like
that's a
even
good
like,
one.
yeah, even coordinating, a group of other residents that may want to like go in on doing some gardening, because you can get raised beds and do that anywhere outside. Even
It's
on,
a good idea. Maybe I will bring that up because I could see a few areas on our patio deck where the pool is to do it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll bring that
Yeah,
up. Thank you.
it's not too late in the season. You want,
Right.
obviously starting from seed, you don't want to do that, but you can go get, little baby plants from the co-op or, a lot of different places, and you could do that even this year. And,
Hmm.
I don't know. All right.
And
So,
I'll just add too that we have a community garden map on our website. And the reason why we did that was to show where a lot of the spaces are for people who don't have their own space to grow. So, so yeah, that should be under our resources on our website.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
okay. So this is coming along. If you have to hop off, please feel free. If you want to keep cooking with us, Michelle, are we okay to just stay on and finish this out?
Yeah, I do want to let people know though that I'm putting a survey in here, and also so that people have a chance to get our door prize. So we have a couple door prizes. I believe it's the polenta. Is that correct?
Yep, I have, two polentas. And then if you want an avocado, I have that too. I got 3 things.
Okay. So yeah, well then everyone can be a winner. You just need to go pick it up at Kelly's Place of Business on Broadway in North Minneapolis. So if you can fill out, it's not going to take more than 5 minutes, but I'm going to put it here, but I will also email it to you if you registered, or can send me your address, but I'm just putting it in the chat right now. So if you can fill that out, you can win a door prize and everyone can be a winner. I'll send it to Linda, who had to leave early for the march. So and then I'll just really quick say our next cooking class is in July, and that will be with Ishmael, who works at the Indigenous Food Lab. And he's going to make something amazing in East Phillips. So would love to have you go to that. And I will send that information out, and it will also be on our website and our Facebook page. So now I'll turn it back over to you, Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to just finish out with adding the collard greens, and then the seasonings, and then you just really let things cook for like 10 or 15 minutes, just for all the flavors to mix together. And then yeah, serve on top of the polenta. So we're going to destem the collard greens. Also, I am an advocate of compost, so I haven't put any of my scraps in the trash. So another thing that we encourage through Minneapolis Edible Boulevards is composting, because if you have a garden, why not compost? So I have my bowl here. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say we can also make that veggie stock.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So these are all rinsed. Um, I when I do collard greens, I'm keeping it simple, okay? They do not need to be diced and sliced perfectly. So when I'm de-stemming, I'm just pulling the leaves off. And you can keep the stems. There's still a lot of nutritional benefits in the stems, and I don't always take all of the stem off. So just like a little bit of it, it's okay if it's still in there. But if you're, especially if you don't have a lot of time and you're just doing trying to get things kind of cooked quickly, like if you had like smoked kind of like southern style collard greens, those can be on the stove for like hours. Those can cook all day long to really soften and get the flavors in there. When you're sauteing collard greens like we're doing for this recipe, it would take a lot longer to get the stems soft. So those are going right back to the earth, so I don't feel like I'm being wasteful right now, but I literally just pull the leaves off and make it really simple. Now, I've used a knife to chop up collard greens before. I've also just used a scissors, just to cut it up, make it really easy. And I think for this recipe, I said 2 bunches of collard greens. And not everyone likes collard greens, right? So, like, what did you get, Michelle?
I got kale to try.
You got kale to try. Okay.
And I have kale too. I got the dino kale.
Oh,
What
yeah.
type of kale do you use, Michelle?
Um, I thought it was curly, but they called it green.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't maybe. Is it softer or is it kind of stocky harder?
It looks curly. It's got all the curls in it. So we'll have to take pictures and post them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one thing that's fun to do is when you make the recipe, please share your pictures in the Minneapolis Edible Boulevards page.
Yeah. I like the or they call it, what is it? Les Lacinato, if I'm pronouncing that right.
I know I
Kale,
mm-hmm.
because it really mimics sort of the collard green in terms of how um stocky it is, and it needs to render down quite a bit. But yeah, I do. I like how it's easy to do a light saute on that. It's probably not as longer to cook as kale would. I mean, as collard greens would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about Kelly, like Swiss chard
Yes, that
or
would be
any kind
great.
of chard?
Any kind of chard would be great. I love chard. And
Mhm.
I mentioned even like, spinach or arugula, or you can do like a really nice medley of greens where it could be kale and chard and arugula, I think would be really yummy together. So yeah, switch it up, get creative. Like I mentioned earlier, and I always mention, I'm an intuitive cook. I don't always follow things to the T. So like, and encourage creativity in the kitchen. So if that sounds good, good, do it. You might have to make adjustments with the seasoning a little bit, but I encourage that too. Like, taste your food as you cook. However, I have cooked meals solely intuitive, and not even tasted while I cook, and by the end of it, it's delicious. And so I actually really do trust myself in the kitchen, and just with my cooking. Now, I don't think most chefs would ever say that publicly or out loud, but if you know your food, you know your flavors, you know your seasoning, you know what's good together and the proportions, you just kind of have that in your mind and you've done enough recipes to know, then, trust yourself. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little bit more greens in. Oops, I don't think you guys can see me, sorry. And then I have the heat at about a medium heat. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit and then put the lid on. And I'm gonna slice, I just have a few more collard greens here, that I'm going to de-stem and chop, once that cooks down a little bit. collard greens, like any green, awesome for your body. Again, it is a natural source of protein, really high in iron. It's been known to reduce cholesterol levels, so really good for cardiovascular health, boost bone strength. So really also a great source of calcium in our dark leafy greens. So, we don't need to just be drinking milk, especially another animal's milk for calcium. Dark leafy greens, especially collard greens, are an excellent source of calcium. So great for bones. Also, they can be really great for digestion because there's a lot of fiber in
Mm.
in our greens. So if you have digestive issues, or if you're like, constipated, need to have a bowel movement, then I would definitely increase your fiber intake. Not eat a bunch of bread. Yes, there's fiber in bread, but your dark leafy greens can help. Even like juicing, like having a green juice would be really good too. So if you don't want to just, eat the leaf or have a salad, you could also just juice. Now I actually haven't juiced collard greens before. That would be an experiment if you're doing a green juice. Add apple or some sweetener of some kind. So that could be really yummy. Yeah, so also collard greens, just really collard greens, rich in antioxidants of vitamins A and C, as well because of the properties that they have in them. The other thing I want to say about that, yeah, they have antioxidant detoxification compounds and also really good for the liver. So a good like kind of a detox plant. So I'll show you where I am. We're gonna season things up and then we'll probably just let you guys go because we're over. And unless I can assemble everything on the plate in a few minutes if people do want to stay on. So here's what things look like over here. I'm gonna now do my mixing and I'm gonna add my seasoning. Okay. My polenta has been off the stove. That's off to the side. That's all cooked here on the plates. I've sprinkled with a little bit more nutritional yeast. So we're good with that. That's just off to the side. Again, if I wanted a different texture, I could just mash all of this up. I'm gonna move this skillet out of the way. And you guys can see this a little bit better. And I'm now gonna grab a spoon. I was using a spatula before, but I'm now gonna grab a spoon for the mixing. And I'll bring my computer here. I'll give it a good mix. Oh, yep, go ahead.
Kelly, since part of celebrating our roots is, about the plants, obviously, and their roots, also about our instructors. I hope I didn't freeze there. It's also about our instructors, and I'm curious, like, why did you choose this particular dish?
No, that's a good question. Well, collard greens have like a Southern, Black culture, history and component to it. I thought about it for Juneteenth as we're, also remembering and honoring our freedom of Black people here in America. And so that stood out. I obviously am, of African American descent. I am biracial. My mother is white, dad was Black. But collard greens stood out as a reason to use that. I wanted to add, like a Southern Black history flair to this dish. Mushrooms, I like mushrooms. Again, it's something that I don't have a ton of, but mushrooms and collard greens sounded good. Polenta. Corn is also historic to Black culture. A lot of cultures, really. But again, it is something that I do not advise eating on a regular basis. So I got inspiration from a recipe online and just kind of told, and I get inspiration from recipes all the time. Then you add your own flair, your style, your own ingredients. And so somebody had this polenta with some collard greens. I was like, you know what? That sounds really good. And so then I just added my own flair. So it was a combination of inspiration from another chef, bringing in this fusion of, African Black history, adding peppers, mushrooms, to the collard greens. That's really, I didn't grow up eating
Mhm.
a lot of collard greens and eating like Southern food. But as I've gotten older and more in touch and more like deeply like connected and rooted in my own genetic history, I have been cooking more Southern flavors or Southern foods, plant-based. Even when I make collard greens, in your typical way in a big pot, and I love collard greens. I know you don't, Michelle, but I'll cook them. That's how I've traditionally done them. And just over like the last maybe 7, 8 years, because I didn't grow up eating Southern food. I'm adopted. My parents are white. They don't, they didn't even like collard greens. But I wasn't even familiar with doing like a saute greens. I don't think that's really typical either.
Mhm.
But they taste just as good. In that soupy flavor or just sauteed up.
Yeah,
So
thank you for sharing that. I'm not a big greens person in general, like lettuce and stuff. I'm good with, so I'm just trying to like dive in bit by bit.
yeah.
That
Okay.
looks
Um,
delicious.
So
Helena.
this is the
I will
recipe.
say for shout out for Kelly because I've known her for some years and I've been to some other demos that she's done and personally have eaten from her. And one of your strengths that I get inspiration from is taking just, everyday comfort food and making it, turning it into a plant-based way of
Mm,
eating
mm,
without compromising taste, texture, overall experience. It's actually,
mm.
to be honest, it actually tastes better.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I always tell people if you're trying to go plant-based, even if you're not doing it as like to be a vegan, but you just want to do more plant-based stuff, you become more creative and
Mm,
you rely more on flavors and a lot more of the ingredients that you're using to be the way how you flavor food than masking it with a lot of stuff that we use and maybe other processed type foods.
mm. Thank you for that, Helena. Yeah, I remember, I think you were last, and Michelle, I don't know if you remember, Helena was at the one that we did at Eastside Co-op a few years ago. When I made the stew. What stew was that? It was like a chickpea sort of stew, but thank you for that. Yeah.
I wasn't able to be at that one. I was wondering if you were at the jackfruit one.
I
No,
missed that one.
my friend
Okay.
Rakira, our mutual friend Rakira was at that one.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's nice to
Oh.
have you here.
So
Thank
as you
you.
so as you see, kind of the final thing,
Mhm.
you can do this really at any stage, but I just happen to put it last. I had my my salt. I did end up using my Mineral Baja Gold salt again, just very nutrient rich. This is, higher end salt. Otherwise, just use sea salt, Himalayan salt if you want. Don't use your table salt. I added my teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of black pepper, all organic, a teaspoon of red pepper. You can always add more spice if you like spice. And then your tablespoon of maple syrup. And you can use any sweetener of choice. I have gone to maple syrup, and I actually am going to add a little bit more. I'm going to do 2 tablespoons maple syrup. This has been my go-to over the last few years for a sweetener versus, like sugar or even agave because it's overly processed. Agave is good. It's definitely better than like your white sugar. Coconut sugar, I have used that. I've been somebody introduced that to me in a recipe that I was trying, and that was really good. I use that sometimes in my smoothies. Coconut syrup. There's even date syrup. Those are some newer, more natural sweeteners that I've been experimenting with outside of the maple syrup. So I have my seasonings all in there, just giving like a good stir. I will show you what this looks like now.
Kelly, sorry for the interruption, but smoked paprika or regular paprika?
I would recommend smoked.
Okay,
Like,
that's
yeah,
what
to
I
get that-
have, so I'm glad.
Good, yeah. So you're getting that savory, smoky flavor, but then we kind of contrast that with sweets. So this is like sweet and savory. So that seems good to me. This is a nice, good proportion. So this should feed, 4 to 5 people, depending, on appetites. So now that everything's in there mixed, I'm gonna just let it kind of just sit for about like 10 minutes on medium heat. And then I am gonna taste test it. And then I'll put it over my polenta. And as I mentioned, and is on the recipe, you can experiment with different toppings for the recipe. So like sliced avocado would be really delicious. Roasted pine nuts is also an option. You could put vegan cheese if you want, for that kind of cheesy flavor, or nutritional yeast, more of that. You could squeeze some fresh lemon juice for a citrusy flavor, and to complement the sweet and savory. That could also be really good. So yeah, that is everything. Um, I I want those flavors to kind of marinate and blend together for 10 minutes. If we want to stay on for another 10 minutes and chat, we can. And or we can just close out and then share our pictures once you assemble it, because that's really important just to see. I know Michelle and I will be sharing pictures pretty quickly. But Jesse and Helena, whenever you get a chance to make your recipe, please do share. And yeah, I'm really happy that you guys took the time to join us today and watch this demo.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone too. And a quick shout out, I forgot at the beginning to thank Eastside Food Co-op for co-sponsoring. And we did get a message from the Falwell Neighborhood Association. So I also want to do a shout out to them and Story Garden. Like I said, we'll look forward to doing an event at their garden in the future, hopefully next year when the weather cooperates more. So thank you everyone so much for coming. We look forward to seeing you in the future. And thank you so much to Kelly for another amazing recipe. And Kelly will be back in the future too. You are amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. It's always so great being here and supporting your work, Michelle. So yeah, it's been fun. We'll reach out with door prizes. 2 people will get polenta if you want, and then an avocado. So that's coming your way. Stay tuned.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah,
Thank you.